Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In last week's video, we talked through the system design of an instant messaging app, something like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. We laid out the architecture, talked through the system design as well as functional requirements, and quickly touched up on the UI that we will be building today. As such, in today's video, we will be using Flutter to flush out the UI for an instant messaging app. We'll be focusing on building an intuitive user interface with a message list as well as the chat interface. We'll use some minimal styling to keep the app clean and user-friendly. As always, this is not a step-by-step tutorial, but rather I will give you a behind-the-scenes look as to what it takes to build an instant messaging app like this, similar to WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. So let's get started. Before we jump into coding out our chat messaging app, I've pulled up the design we talked through last time, so let's take a quick peek to refresh our minds on what we will be building. So at the top here, you can see this middle section is what I had shared we will be building. I know it says add story at top, but I'm thinking more of like, hey, maybe we can pin popular users, or in our case, we'll probably just hard code it in, and this will be like a horizontal slider. And then at the bottom here, we actually get the chat app, which is going to be a vertical scroll list. Probably all of this together, if possible, will be scrollable, so those won't like stick around, but rather it will be part of a list if it's possible. Then similarly, we can see on the right here a little bit behind there, that's the chat conversation, but if we scroll down, we can actually pull up a better image to get a look here. We can see here you can press back to get to previous screen. Here we actually have the user's name and profile picture, and then we're not going to worry about video or voice calls because we said that would be out of scope. However, we will be adding something like this to have a chat conversation, probably have a bar down here that we can enter text and then send it, and it should appear here. So you can see it's supposed to be rather simple. I mean, it's just a simple chat-to-chat messaging service. So we'll start out by building a homepage, probably with these two components, and then we'll be regrouping in a couple of seconds. All right, so taking a look at what I have come up with right now, we can see that the homepage is somewhat created. If we go back out to our design over here, we can see it's closely matching what we expected here in the middle. For instance, up top, we have these popular contacts items that we can scroll towards the right and towards the left. And then we also have this huge chat list that we can scroll up and down to as well. Right now, we're missing the way to add a new chat, and also like clickable is not implemented yet. But the nice thing though is that here it's a little bit more dynamic. We can see, if we have a message that is considered unread, it is bolded, and it also gets the notification count of how many unread messages are within this chat. Similarly, if the message is read, then we do not get this notification, and we also do not have it bolded. So right now, most of the data is actually hard-coded. I'm pulling these images from Pixabay, but also we can think about this being a profile picture. And if a user does not have a profile picture, maybe we just put their first letter of their first name in here. It's just an example of what we might want to place into it. All right, so I think as a next step, what I would like to do is get the actual chat working as well, so that we can click on one of those and then get launched into this chat room conversation. Here, like I said before, we can see we basically have an app bar on top with a back arrow as well as the user profile icon and name. I mentioned before, we're not going to focus on whether or not the user is online, offline. That would be something for our notification system that's important so that we can deliver the message right away. But this is generally considered an MVP approach, so I'm not going to update the user status and have that implemented here. Rather, I'm just going to focus on the back button, the user icon again, the name, We're not doing any calls, video calls, or phone calls, but rather we're just going to focus on the content that was written back and forth. And obviously we're not going to do replies here, but rather be straight replies. It's supposed to be a very simple application that we're building with not a whole lot of advanced features built in at the moment. So I will take some time, try to implement this sort of layout, and then we're going to regroup. And I'm back. So I have taken the time to flesh out the user interface, the chat room itself. Let's take a look at what it looks like. So up here we have the app on the right hand side. We went over this earlier, but just to remind you, like, we can scroll left and right for popular icons, and we can also scroll up and down to see additional chats that we currently have available to us. All of these are clickable right now, so if I click on the top one here, we get into a chat conversation, or if I click down here, we also get into a chat. You can see it doesn't matter which one I click on right now, it is always bringing up Eric Porter here, and then it also brings up the same chat for itself. This is because all of the content is currently hard-coded, and we just want to make sure the styling is in place before we start on the user functionality. Same thing goes out here. All of this is currently hard-coded. It is not being pulled dynamically, and it's just for a sample at the moment. That being said, obviously we can tap down here, and then we get into the chat. We can type in something, and then of course, when we press done or send, it doesn't do anything at the moment. So that still needs to be implemented as a next step. But if we go ahead and try to match up where we were looking at earlier, which is this chat out here, then we can see we're actually damn close here. We have this back arrow that is currently functional, brings us back to the home page, and we have the icon of the user as well as the name next to it. I mentioned we're not going to worry about the online or offline status here. Similarly, because we don't not support video calls or phone calls, we did not need these icons. However, we do have the chat itself implemented right here. I actually took the same text sort of for the most part. And then because we do not have extra functionality, we didn't need like a plus icon for like other items. And then we do have the chat itself and then a send button instead of the voice button to make sure that we can send it. So as the next step, I'll probably start making some of these items more dynamics, and I'll see whether or not we can like have a bottom here where we say like a plus icon and to get a new chat conversation going, where I then can select the user or something, and then I can start chatting with them. So yeah, I'll try to get at least the front page more dynamic, and then we're going to talk again in a couple of seconds. Thanks for sticking around. Now let's take a quick peek at where we're at the moment, because I have taken some opportunity to make some of the data more dynamic and more interactable, but we're still not quite done with the app. There's not a whole lot left, but let's take a look. So previously, the home page already looked somewhat like this, so we could scroll to the right and to the left, and you can see I actually removed one of the contacts here. In that case, we can scroll down the list and we still have the rest of them, but it is basically now pulled from hard-coded data. However, instead of having it directly in my widgetry, I actually pulled it out into like this data component over here so that I can have my contacts basically that are listed here, which I use to populate the top section, which I have cut down to just until Tim basically, so the top 8 or so are here. And then at the bottom you can see we have the rest of them. You can see we have the rest of the contacts as well. And these pieces get cut out from my current chats basically. So we look at the last chat within our map here. In this case, we know that this is the most recent chat and it should be on the top. If we have the stuff here at the top here, it is the oldest chat and it is at the bottom. Now, I realize that map might not be the best data structure here to use. Maybe we have something like a priority queue or have some other sort of value that at least it automatically sorts, or it's like pushed towards the top. And then we have like a sorted list or something. The idea here is that yes, we will eventually go by time, but for now, in demo purposes, I did not want to deal with this piece, and I think the data would eventually be nicely outsourced in like a higher store or a different database that we had discussed. However, for this purpose, it is hard coded in, so I just like pulled the top and was able to find the data as needed. And with that in mind, the home page has been restructured a little bit, and this is where the majority of the content went on. We now have a get popular user section, which really just like gets these top icons here on the right. So if we jump in, we can see we dynamically pull the first 8. In this case, you know, we could create a new list or have a section within the database that says like, hey, these are my favorites, and that's the list that's being pulled out from. I just hard-coded it to 8 at the moment. Similarly, we also have a new get chats section. This is actually a little bit more interesting, but similar to the get popular users, it creates basically the content. We pass in the URL and the image from my user in the map, so that would be this piece. Then we also go ahead and grab the message preview, which would be from the last message, of course. Same, the send time is from the last message, and then if the last message was not read, then basically we have to count up from the bottom how many unread messages we have, and then we can display that at the right. So this is where like the counter piece comes in, and what I talked about right here. You know, if you think about the card and look at the bottom of the contact here, we see we have 3 messages. None of them have been read, so we have a 3 out here. Then this message right here, we actually read because we pass it in as such, and we do see it's no longer bold and we do not have that icon. Similarly, here we have 1 unread message, and then for the contact above, we have 2 unread messages, and that matches here again, where we have 1 unread message and 2 unread messages. So it's a little bit more dynamic now, and in addition, we added this floating action button to create new chats. You can see it pops up a new chat conversation. If we cancel it, nothing actually happens. But if we go in, this is the idea that, you know, the user might have some sort of linked contact, or we ask them for a phone number or something that uniquely identifies the different user within our system. However, for this example app, you know, we just take in a contact name. So let's say we give it Eric, and then if we say OK, you can see that we're still launching into this chat with Eric in the past, and we have him right here at the top. Now, obviously, this will still be populated for every single user because that's still the hard-coded piece, and the last piece that needs to go in really is to make this more dynamic so that we pull the actual user image, the actual username that we're on, as well as the chat conversations from this list. And then at the very end, we also need to focus on getting this in basically. This more like, you know, if we want to send this chat, it's currently doesn't work. So that is the last final pieces that needs to happen to make this a little bit more dynamic and interactable. And yeah, I think we're about to wrap up, but there's a little bit left. So let me finish the app up, and then we'll connect again in a couple of seconds. And the app is done. Let's go over it. So I know I've shown this a couple times, but let's take a look at what we had set out to do. You know, this was our main screen that we wanted to kind of implement. we can see we have a popular user section here at the very top, which is actually navigatable to the right and left here. We can also click on one to get into the conversation, and we can go back, of course, to the main chat. Down here, we actually have a lot of chat users that we can click into and we can also interact with. For instance, here, we can click into this user. And so it's, this is basically the home page. Now I know I have shown off the sort of chat message here, but I did want to show this again. So for instance, right now we can see Terry has sent us 3 messages that are unread. So if I click into Terry, we can see her messages, and I can actually respond to Terry here as well, saying something like, "Hi, Terry," and then I can either click this send button and it sends it. If I want to get rid of the keyboard, I can just click down there, but I can also like send it from here and say, maybe something like thanks, and then I can send it as well. So you can see that I can interact several different ways. The app is very dynamic now, and if I go back, you can see that those 3 messages are now considered read because I've opened the chat. Now it only means I have to open the chat, not necessarily respond, because if we look at Rogers, I can look into the message and then I can go back and you see I have read the message. And similarly, if I go back into Terry, I can see that I responded to her and the messages stick around. Similarly, I can create actually a new chat here. Let's say I want to be chatting with Eric, and so I can say okay, and then I can just send them a message like, "Hi, Eric," and then I can send that. And if I go back, we can see I've sent Eric a message. I can click back in. Here's Eric's the message I sent to Eric. So I can see it's very dynamic, and yeah, so basically this is a high level for what the WhatsApp clone looks like. We have set out to do, and if we take a comparison based on chat, we see that the messages that are being sent to me are kind of like gray and they're aligned to the left. The messages I send are considered green and they are on the right. And it also flows nicely into the next line. If I have more messages than is allowed here, I can actually scroll up as well, because this is a list view. So it is, like I said, it's a basic chat application that we've filled in. So, if you have any thoughts or comments on this chat app, or want me to build your app, then leave a comment in the comment section below. And with that, I do want to say thank you so much for watching and have a nice day.